Aloha, thank you for joining us on this Monday afternoon. You're watching This Is Now. It's day one of the Democratic National Convention, and protests are filling the streets of Chicago. And it's going to be a big night for President Biden.
Daryl Huff is in Chicago. He'll be covering the convention festivities for us all week. He filed this report for us earlier.
Aloha from Chicago. It's a beautiful day here, about 70 degrees. It's about 4 o'clock. The delegates will begin arriving here at the United Center for the convention in about an hour, and then the program will start in about 2 hours. It's a very celebratory mood here. The only cloud is the continuing dispute over the U.S. policy to Gaza and Israel, which has actually split the Hawaii delegation more than most. Thousands of protesters demonstrating over the crisis in Gaza, as well as for reproductive rights, marched through downtown Chicago last night, the first of many daily protests. Security is very, very tight, with Chicago and Illinois State Police, as well as Homeland Security and Secret Service keeping watch. The perimeter around United Center makes for a lot of hiking. Hawaii's delegation is actually the most divided over Gaza, with about 7 still uncommitted to Harris. But it was all smiles and hugs this morning at breakfast at the Hyatt Regency Chicago. One sentiment, their mixed feelings as they prepare to hear President Biden speak tonight.
I think it's going to be bittersweet. I ran his campaign in Hawaii in 2020 and was all in. But again, it's time for new leadership. He stepped aside so Kamala Harris could step up and potentially be our first female president. That's so exciting.
So I'm going to have kind of a melancholy moment as we've loved President Biden. He's been so good to our state and our family. So, of course, that will weigh heavily on my heart. But I'll also be so excited on Thursday when Vice President Harris gets the nomination and begins the process to becoming the first woman president, which I really believe is going to happen.
This is a changing, pivotal moment. It's a time of generational transition. So you're seeing a lot of energy. You're seeing a lot of gray hair, but you're seeing a lot of youth as well. And I think that's what's really important. So it's an exciting time for change.
Most of the delegates spent the day at caucuses at another convention center. They're beginning to arrive now at the United Center behind me, and they will be starting the program about 6 o'clock with multiple speeches leading up to President Biden's speech, probably about 9 or 10 o'clock. We will be here to listen to those speeches, get the reaction of the delegation, as well as reaching out to local Republicans, because we want to balance this coverage as best we can, but it really is going to be a huge party here in Chicago. Reporting from the Democratic National Convention, Daryl Huff, Hawaii News Now.
As Daryl mentioned, President Biden will be tonight's keynote speaker, but the rest of the week will be focused on the future with Vice President Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. Skylar Henry continues our coverage from Chicago.
Organizers of the Democratic National Convention laid out what voters can expect tonight.
Tonight's theme, For the People, will showcase Kamala Harris's commitment to fighting for everyday Americans.
A new CBS News YouGov poll shows Vice President Kamala Harris goes into this convention with a 3-point lead nationally over former President Donald Trump. But she is effectively tied in the battleground states that are likely to decide the race. Her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, laid out this game plan for delegates this morning.
We've got 78 days of hard work. We can sleep when we're dead. Not now. Not now.
Delegates we spoke with say they can feel the momentum.
It's just a dramatic change from 4 weeks ago.
Mike Thaler is a delegate from San Diego.
We've seen this energy shift, if you will, from nominee to nominee. Have you been able to feel that in California?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And really, I think the purpose of the convention itself is to get that momentum usually started, but they didn't need to start it. It was hot and heavy.
Outside the convention center, protests against the war in Gaza are expected all week. Chicago police say there shouldn't be any issues if the protests stay peaceful.
We would prefer not to have clashes. We would prefer not to have to make arrests if we don't have to.
President Biden is the keynote speaker tonight. Harris accepts her party's nomination later in the week. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Chicago.
As the Democrats gather for convention, former President Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance are in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. It's the start of a week-long battleground state blitz. Nicole Skanga has more.
Former President Donald Trump kicked off one of his busiest campaign weeks ever in reliably red York, Pennsylvania, with his message to make America affordable again.
We will put more money into your pockets and create millions and millions of new jobs. We're going to do it like nobody else.
Trump hopes to end what Republicans and supporters are calling the Harris honeymoon period.
You know, I think that the Harris bump has already happened.
But the former president has struggled to stay on his economic message.
I'm a better looking person than Kamala.
Rifts like that have Trump allies concerned.
And if you have a policy debate for president, he wins. Donald Trump, the provocateur, the showman, may not win this election.
CBS News polling says the former president leads among those who say the economy and inflation are major factors in their vote. Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, also talked economics in Pennsylvania Monday.
She wants to make groceries and homes more affordable for American citizens. Well, Kamala Harris, where have you been? Because you've been vice president for about 1,300 days. Day one was 3.5 years ago. You should have been doing your job then.
Pennsylvania would be a major prize for either party. 10 of the past 12 presidents won the Keystone State. The former president is scheduled to visit 4 more battleground states later this week, including North Carolina, where Trump will hold an outdoor rally, the first since his assassination attempt a little over a month ago. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, Washington.
Former U.S. Representative George Santos has pleaded guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft in his federal fraud case. The New York Republican entered his plea today in a courtroom in Long Island. His trial had been set to start in early September. Santos was indicted on charges that he stole from political donors, used campaign contributions to pay for personal expenses, lied to Congress about his wealth, and collected unemployment benefits while working. He was expelled from Congress after an ethics investigation found what it called overwhelming evidence that Santos had broken the law. He faces more than 6 years in prison under federal guidelines at sentencing in February and owes at least $370,000 in restitution. New developments in the disappearance of a 19-year-old pregnant woman who went missing from her Schofield Barracks home last month. The 25th Infantry Division has confirmed that Misha's husband, Private First Class Dwayne Arthur Johnson II of Frederick, Maryland, has been taken into custody and is currently in military pretrial confinement. Officials say their efforts remain focused on locating Misha, who was last seen more than 2 weeks ago on July 31st. Concerned residents were out in force this weekend calling for an end to the ongoing violence on Oahu's west side. 3 shootings in Waianae in less than 2 weeks prompted city, state, and even federal leaders to take action. 7 people have been shot in the past 2 weeks. Last Thursday night, a 15-year-old and a 19-year-old were both found with multiple gunshot wounds in separate locations. Both were near an apartment complex on Ala'akau Street. That happened just a day after police shot a man who shot his neighbors in Waianae Valley. And last Tuesday, a man died in a shooting at the Waianae Boat Harbor. In response, the presence of law enforcement was beefed up over the weekend.
The reason why we are adding extra enforcement and support in the harbor, because it's become a hot spot. It's become a holdover area where if things don't get handled, it happens at the boat harbor. And we don't want to see that because it's a public space. It should be safe for families. It should be safe for the public, and it's not.
I believe very deeply we match force with force. And to that end, we will deliver that force.
Police are also pledging longer-term efforts to keep the violence down for good. A youth-focused crime prevention town hall is planned for Wednesday at Waianae High School at 6 p.m.
The state is hosting a gun buyback this Saturday at Aloha Stadium's lower parking lot. They're offering $200 Foodland gift cards in exchange for automatic weapons, semi-automatic rifles, and ghost guns. $100 gift cards will be swapped for handguns, rifles, shotguns, bump stocks, and Glock switches. A portion of Mulele Airlines' fleet remains grounded, leaving some travelers still waiting for a flight. The airline says issues were uncovered while a plane's landing gear was being serviced. Mulele plays a vital role in connecting Hawaii's most rural communities with other parts of the state. This area includes Molokai and Lanai. Now with 28 planes out of commission, along with some of its smaller Cessna caravans, the airline has been forced to call in help from Trans Air Cargo.
We've been gone for almost a month and we want to get home.
Mulele is the only commercial airline for Lanai and Molokai residents, and they say they hope to have full service restored tomorrow. Honolulu firefighters extinguished an early morning blaze at Milani High School today. The fire was reported around 4:45 a.m. near the school's tennis courts. 7 units were displaced to Milani High School, and crews found plastic rubbish burning near the school's softball field. The fire was under control in about 10 minutes and fully extinguished around 5:10 a.m. HPD has opened an arson investigation. In international news, at least 23 people were injured when 2 gondolas of a Ferris wheel caught fire at a music festival near Leipzig in eastern Germany this weekend. Police said the fire started in one gondola and spread to a second. 4 people suffered burn injuries and 1 suffered injuries from a fall. Another, including first responders and at least 4 police officers, were to be examined in the hospital for possible smoke inhalation. The accident took place at the Highfield Festival. Police are still investigating what caused this fire. The operator of the Ferris wheel said that no passengers were sitting in the gondola in which the fire started. A Hawaii man accused of intentionally killing 25 seagulls on a beach in Washington state has been identified by authorities as 64-year-old James Travis of East Oahu. Travis is being charged with a felony for animal cruelty, which comes with possible jail time. Our Eddie Dowd has the update.
We talked to neighbors of James Travis who describe him as a nice older man who they've never had any problems with and never showed any signs of aggression. They did say, however, they saw police here in front of his home earlier this week and were wondering what it was all about. Washington state officials say in July, Travis intentionally ran over 25 protected seagulls at Clipson Beach and nearly hit 2 people walking their dog.
I mean, this was just so intentional that it was horrible.
The investigation, led by the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife Police, interviewed witnesses who stopped the Jeep and took photos.
Just the report of how reckless he was driving on the beach from multiple people, and the fact that he purposely drove into this flock of gulls really grabbed our attention.
That evidence is now in the hands of Pacific County prosecutors who have charged Travis with a Class C felony for animal cruelty. In Washington state, the maximum penalty for that is 5 years in prison and $10,000 in fines.
Our animal cruelty laws are in place for a reason. There's a difference between intentionally doing an act like this and accidentally running into something, which many people have done before, and they feel awful about it.
Over the past 2 weeks, we've tried to contact Travis and even went to his home. Hello, James. This is Eddie Dowd with Hawaii News Now. But no answer. Travis's neighbors say he runs a construction company. According to Hawaii court records, he does not have a criminal history. Pacific County prosecutors say the animal cruelty charge does not require a warrant for his arrest, but is possible if he fails to appear in court, which is being scheduled in Washington state. Eddie Dowd, Hawaii News Now.
And now to a First Alert heads up for you. Our weather team has declared a First Alert weather day for this coming Saturday and Sunday, as they are keeping a very close eye on a possible tropical cyclone that could have an impact on the state in one way or another. Here's Jennifer Robbins to explain.
As we face the peak of hurricane season, waters to our southeast are warming up, and that's potential fuel for tropical cyclones. We already have a storm over the eastern Pacific. Gilma will head to the north and fizzle out, but we may see some remnant rain and surf from the system, but it does not appear to be a big threat. And a First Alert heads up, we're tracking an area of disorganized thunderstorms that's southeast of the islands, pretty close to where the eastern Pacific meets the central Pacific, and potentially another storm could be spawned. Latest models are showing a higher chance for development into this week, with a favorable environment to our southeast. And long-range weather models are having a hard time when the timing of all of these ingredients can come together. But with the latest runs, it appears as early as Tuesday into Wednesday, we will start seeing circulation in this cluster of thunderstorms, where a tropical cyclone will be born. Its name will depend on the origin of the storm. If it becomes more organized over the eastern Pacific, it will be given the name Hector. If it forms over the central Pacific, it will be given a Hawaiian name, Hone. But I think models are leaning more towards development a little farther east, so Hector may be next in line. And there's still a lot of uncertainty to which path it will take. Many models suggest that we'll stay to our south, but Hawaii Island will see the most impacts. The latest models suggest it will be in our neighborhood late Saturday into Monday, with the storm center staying to our south, but its closest path to Hawaii Island. If this model holds true, Hawaii Island will need to prepare for potential heavy rain, some wind, and all of the islands with bigger surf. It's always tricky when a system comes in from the south. That's why we'll have to watch it from start to finish until it completely diminishes. This is a good time to look over your disaster kit and talk about a plan with your family. Your First Alert weather team will diligently keep an eye on the potential impacts. First Alert Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Robbins, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you, Jen. And again, a reminder, our First Alert weather team has declared a First Alert weather day for Saturday and Sunday. Guy's going to have more on that coming in up in our weather in the next block. Now let's take you live out to Chicago, where the Democratic National Convention is underway. Day one with President Biden expected to make the keynote address. We're going to have more news after the break.
Aloha on this Monday. For today and for the rest of the work week, the weather's actually looking pretty good, although it is going to be a little bit windy from Wednesday on. And now we are tracking some systems in the East Pacific. We've got Tropical Storm Gilma, expected to become a hurricane actually, but as it moves into cooler water, it's going to live and die out over the open ocean. Will not have a big impact on us. However, there is a developing cyclone in the East Pacific about to become into the Central Pacific, move into the Central Pacific. And as it gets closer, it'll likely strengthen, and it could bring us some severe weather, maybe Sunday, Monday of next week. So over our next upcoming weekend, we could see some severe weather from this developing storm. So keep it here on your First Alert station. We'll keep track of that system and let you know the exact impacts as far as the timeline and what we can expect. Now you can see this morning there's not a whole lot going on aside from some scattered showers moving into Oahu's windward side. Maui County picking up a few showers as well, but that does not represent a lot of rain. And the winds are going to be running brisk and breezy for the next several days. They'll run steady today and tomorrow and step up another notch on Wednesday. So for the rest of the work week, this is what we're looking at. Similar conditions to what we see today, right? A few clouds, a few showers in the morning, lots of afternoon sunshine, high temperatures running to about 89. And again, those winds will get stronger by the middle of the week. Now, as far as surf, we're looking at a rising swell, which will be peaking today for south and west shores near advisory levels. This could be a solid swell. And with those trade winds, conditions could be pretty good. Now keep in mind, by the middle of the week, we could see a solid northwest swell from an old typhoon out in the West Pacific. So we've got a nice run of weather this week, right? So breezy trade winds today and tomorrow, getting stronger from Wednesday on into the weekend. Now keep in mind that the weather pattern is not going to change very much. We'll have some windward and Malka showers. Will still be mostly dry for those leeward areas. Now keep in mind that you have to keep track of what's happening after Saturday, because that developing cyclone could bring us some severe weather. We'll keep you posted.
Looking to the northeastern United States, severe storms that lashed the area Sunday are now being blamed for at least 2 deaths in Connecticut and substantial property damage across the region. As Laura Aguirre explains, the weather threats continue with Hurricane Ernesto, which sits miles off the coast but is still close enough to pack a powerful punch.
The water's up to the wall right there, the top of the wall.
The destructive and now deadly floodwaters that washed over parts of the Northeast Sunday rose quickly, trapping many people inside homes and businesses.
Look at that going across there, my God.
Up to 10 inches of rain fell across parts of southwestern Connecticut.
We are talking about rainfall in some areas in the 1,000-year level.
A dam along the Housatonic River was no match for the torrential weekend storms. Water rushed over its top, worsening the flooding downriver.
It's all the way up to here. Now we're standing in a foot of water in the bar.
Firefighters in Oxford used their ladder truck for the daring overwater rescue of 19 people and a dog from an inn Sunday night.
We are already working with municipalities and our state agencies and our federal partners to determine whether or not we can ask for some federal assistance.
The full scope of property damage and the death toll could expand as waters recede in the coming hours and collapsed buildings are more closely searched, an effort made more challenging by the chance of severe weather along the upper East Coast Monday, and by Ernesto, currently a Category 1 hurricane off the coast that's battering several coastal areas with its outer bands, resulting in a number of high wave and riptide warnings. Forecasters predict Ernesto will become a form of tropical cyclone Tuesday and spin out to sea. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
Phil Donahue, often known as the king of daytime talk, has died at the age of 88. Danya Bacchus has a look back on his legendary career.
Phil Donahue's pioneering daytime talk show paved the way for a TV format that dozens of broadcasters copied over decades. It started as the Phil Donahue Show in the 1960s, was later renamed just Donahue, and it quickly became a highly sought-after stop for politicians, entertainers, and other high-profile newsmakers. There was usually one guest and one topic, tackling hot-button issues that others avoided, including feminism, homosexuality, and abortion. And the Ohio native was the first to get the audience involved for questions and comments. The talk show host made headlines in 1980 when he married that girl, TV star Marlo Thomas. He later called it love at first sight. Donahue's popularity soared. In 1996, he danced with Princess Diana at a charity gala. He said no one had ever taken so many photos of him before that night. He also dabbled in films, co-directing the 2006 documentary Body of War, which was nominated for an Oscar. In May of this year, President Biden awarded Donahue the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The president said Donahue changed hearts and minds across the nation with honest and open dialogue. Danya Bacchus, CBS News.
The FDA cleared the way for a new gel designed to stop severe bleeding in just seconds. It's called Trauma Gel, and it's actually derived from algae. Crescent CEO and co-founder Joe Landolina launched the company out of his NYU dorm in 2010 when the young scientist stumbled upon a gel that stuck to his skin.
I had this idea that what if you took that gel and put it into a bleeding bullet wound to get a patient from point A to point B without them bleeding out.
The gel has the consistency of hummus, and once it comes to contact with the wound, it forms a mechanical barrier against bleeding and no manual pressure is required. Trauma Gel is expected to roll out to hospitals and EMS teams later this year. Blood loss in traumatic wounds is responsible for more than 35% of all pre-hospital deaths.
Now we go to Japan, where bonfire symbols were lit up in Kyoto's mountains to mark the end of the Obon holiday season there. The summer tradition, called Gozan Okuribi, is meant to send off the spirits of ancestors who came to visit during Japan's Obon season, as well as pray for good health. To kick off the event, a 525-foot symbol depicting the kanji Oki, which means big, formed by large fires, was lit on Daimonji Mountain. Other characters and symbols, including those representing Buddha's teachings and a ship, burned for around 30 minutes across 5 mountains in the Higashiyama area. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Remember, we'll have more coverage from the DNC.